was a week before Christmas, and opening the door was the last thing she ever did. I moved in with my dad when I was 10. I didn't know anyone in the area, except one family, a single mom and her 3 kids. She had a daughter a couple years older than me. We weren't close, but we shared the same friends. One night, my friend Rob was hanging out at her house with her and her younger brother. They were alone. Their mom was working late. Rob wasn't supposed to be there, but nobody thought much of it. Later that night, there was a knock at the door. My friend thought it was her mom. She had a certain way of knocking, so she opened it without thinking. Rob panicked. He jumped out the window and ran home down the road. He never looked back, because the woman at the door wasn't her mom. Her mother had been helping another woman through work. That woman had a sister that was recently released from a mental institution. Through conversations, she learned where the family lived and when the mom worked. That's how she found her way over there. After that, all I know is that the younger brother escaped, ran to a neighbor's house, and called the police. What happened after that? I only learned later. My friend was brutally killed by the woman. She was decapitated. It happened a week before Christmas. Her body was found in the bathtub. The house was still decorated. Presents were wrapped and waiting. Her head had been hidden somewhere inside the house. They had to search through the gifts to find it, and I don't know where they found it, but they did. I was still a kid then, so I wasn't allowed to go to her funeral. The worst part is there was no warning, no struggle, just a door opening to the wrong person, and consequences that couldn't be undone. We heard the screaming from across the river. Then we heard it on our side. A few friends and I were night fishing on the James River. We had a fire going, a few beers, just talking about nothing. Everything felt completely normal, just a typical guy's night out. Then, all at once, everyone stopped talking. It was like a switch had been flipped. We were all staring across the river, into the darkness on the other side, and every single one of us felt it. Something was staring back. It wasn't fear, not at first. It was just wrong. An unsettling feeling that crawled up your spine. Some of the guys tried to laugh it off, making jokes to break the tension. That's when the sound hit us. A blood-curdling scream erupted from the opposite shore. It didn't sound like any animal I'd ever heard. It didn't sound human either. It sounded like something completely wild, something with no language, being gutted alive. There were no words, just a raw, high-pitched scream that made every hair on my body stand on end. Nobody moved. Nobody even breathed. We just stared into the void across the water. Then it screamed again. This time it was louder. And it sounded closer, much closer. That's when the panic set in. A few of us bolted for the trucks, fumbling in the dark for whatever firearms we had with us. When we got back to the fire, we didn't make any more jokes. We just sat there, quiet, listening to the woods. The silence that followed was somehow worse than the screaming. The fire crackled, but the woods were dead quiet. No crickets, no frogs, nothing. It was like every living thing was holding its breath, waiting. We stayed like that for what felt like an eternity, weapons ready, scanning the tree line. Then, from our side of the river, right behind us in the woods, we heard a twig snap. It was close. Too close. My heart was pounding in my chest. We all whipped around, pointing our lights into the trees, but we saw nothing. Just endless, suffocating darkness. We packed up our gear in record time, threw everything in the trucks, and got out of there. We never went back to that spot, and to this day, I can still hear that scream in my nightmares. What was in the woods that night? I don't think I ever want to know. She thought she lived alone, until her student looked under the bed. This story happened to a very close friend of mine. For her privacy, we'll call her Minji. She's in her late 20s, living and working as an English tutor in South Korea. One night, Minji was tutoring a high school boy, and they got completely carried away with their lesson. They studied late, way too late. By the time they finally finished, all the buses had stopped running for the night, and the boy lived on the other side of town, a really long way away. He was worried and asked if he could just sleep on her floor, and then catch the very first bus in the morning. Honestly, Minji didn't like the idea at all. Inviting a teenage male student to stay overnight in her small apartment just felt wrong, but he kept begging, explaining his situation, and eventually, she felt she had no choice. She agreed. Back at her little one-room apartment, Minji got into her bed, and the boy laid a blanket out on the floor right beside it. Soon enough, they both fell asleep. But a few hours later, Minji was shaken awake. She opened her eyes to see the boy standing over her, looking really anxious.
"I'm really hungry,"
he said.
"Let's go get some food."
Minji couldn't believe it. She looked at her clock. It was 2 in the morning. She told him to just go back to sleep. She even mentioned there was some instant ramen in the kitchen if he was truly that hungry. But that wasn't good enough for him. He insisted they go out, saying he knew a 24-hour place just down the road. After several minutes of him being so persistent, Minji finally, and very reluctantly, gave in. They left the apartment together. But as soon as they reached the street, the boy stopped dead in his tracks. He turned to Minji, his eyes wide, and said,
"I'm not hungry."
Then he said something that made her blood run cold.
"I woke up in the middle of the night, and I looked under your bed. There's a man sleeping there."
They immediately called the police. And what the officers found still chills my friend to this day. A homeless man had been secretly living in Minji's apartment, sleeping under her bed. The only reason the boy saw him was because he was sleeping on the floor. And that's when the terrifying reality hit Minji. She never lived alone. She just never thought to look under the bed. Someone kept parking at the end of our driveway, and they were watching my sister. When I was a kid, maybe 8 to 11, my sister babysat me whenever our parents were out. She was 7 years older than me. She smoked a lot, and my parents made her do it outside. So I'd follow her out, annoy her, hang around. One night, she noticed a car at the end of our driveway. A white SUV, bike rack on top. Windows so tinted you couldn't see inside. It just sat there. When she went back inside, the SUV drove off, down to the church parking lot, and waited. As soon as she came back out to smoke, it returned. This happened again and again. The next day, it was back. Same place, same SUV, just watching. I know it was watching her, because when I stayed inside, I watched from the front window. It never moved, she told my dad. He was a sheriff's deputy at the time. He called it in. Police showed up. The SUV was gone. Months went by. Nothing. Then 9 months after it started, it came back, like it never left. One afternoon, my sister had enough. She told me to stay in the carport. She started walking toward the SUV. Halfway down the driveway, she stopped. Later, she told us she felt pure terror. Like if she took another step, she was dead. She turned around and ran inside. One night, the family car was in the shop. My parents were home. My sister went outside to smoke. I followed her. And then the SUV appeared. She told me to run inside and get my dad. I did. He grabbed his gun and walked down the driveway. Not aiming it, just holding it. The SUV floored it, sped down the road and peeled onto the highway. My dad caught the details, the year, the model, and one thing he never forgot. The license plate was covered in duct tape. We never saw the SUV again, and we never found out who was inside. But whoever it was, wasn't lost. They knew exactly who they were watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like, comment, and subscribe. It means a lot, and it's completely free.